name is Hailey, and I'm going to be frolicking through the halls.
A young girl described by her family as smart, beautiful, and kind. She went missing, and the search for her went on for weeks across state lines, but the hope that she would return home safely has been shattered. Law enforcement say they believe teenager Hailey Buzbee is dead, and this 39-year-old man is allegedly responsible. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Hey guys, real quick, before we start this episode of On the Case, I want to talk about our partner and sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest personal injury law firm. They're a firm with more than 1,000 attorneys who have recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. And in the past few months alone, a client in Florida received $12 million when insurance offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, another client was awarded $26 million. That is 40 times the insurer's offer. Morgan & Morgan makes it easy to fight for what you deserve. You can even start a claim from your phone. So if you're injured, you can start a claim at forthepeople.com/OTC. You can click the link below or scan the QR code on your screen. For nearly a month, the family and friends of Hailey Buzbee held on to hope that she would come home safely. But now the search for the 17-year-old girl from Indiana has turned into a hunt for justice. I want you to take a look at the missing persons poster that was put out by police in Fishers, Indiana in early January. It was on January 6th that police were first called to the Buzbee home in the community of Fishers, north of Indianapolis. Police say around 10 p.m. the night before, on January 5th, Hailey's family saw her last. They say that Hailey just left in the middle of the night. Officers canvassed the area, and their first big break in this case appears to have been when they realized that there was a suspicious vehicle that no one knew driving in that neighborhood the night that she went missing. Police say that Hailey wasn't kidnapped or abducted, that she had gotten into that vehicle. But at that point, who was driving, why she would get into the car, immediately it was unclear.
My name is Hailey, and I'm going to be frolicking through the halls.
Now, Hailey was a typical teenager. She had plans to go off to college. Her dad posted updates daily after she went missing, showing her having fun with friends and videos and pictures of her with her family. As her story spread, storefronts in Indiana had her picture, just in hopes that someone would see something and know where she went.
Happy birthday to you.
But as the days passed, as the weeks passed, and for as much as this family and this community prayed that she would come home safe, on Sunday, police in Fishers, Indiana, took to the podium and said the words that no one wanted to hear. This is the news conference per WTHR-TV in Indiana.
And so it pains me today to let you know that after an extensive investigation, we feel that Hailey is deceased.
When you hear an update like that, it is a punch to the gut. Law enforcement said they had notified Hailey's family of the news. They said their investigation centered around that suspicious car that they saw in Hailey's neighborhood on the night that she went missing. They tied that car to a man who lived in Ohio, 39-year-old Tyler Thomas.
Our detectives identified Thomas as the suspect she had left with. We made contact with him in Ohio, and he admitted to picking Hailey up at her home. He told us that he dropped her off on the side of the road in western Ohio. However, through continued investigations, his initial story was determined to be untrue.
Fishers police say they worked with the FBI to track Thomas down. They also had help from the Columbus Police Department as well as the Sheriff's Office in Hosang County, Ohio. It's a rural area south of Columbus, and it's actually known for its outdoors. Now, here's what we're learning about this man, Tyler Thomas. According to Ohio jail records, his address is listed as homeless, but police in their news conference said that they searched his home in Columbus for evidence as well as a short-term rental that he had in Hosang County, Ohio. We have the criminal complaint out of Franklin County, Ohio, and it reads that Thomas allegedly picked a minor up out of state and had a cache of photos on his cellular phone, which allegedly shows a minor performing a sex act at a home on Hunter Avenue in Columbus. Now, we looked up the address that was listed on the complaint, and it shows a very nice home that was sold off market for more than $800,000 in 2020. That's according to Redfin. Thomas made his first court appearance today in Franklin County, Ohio, where Columbus is. He's being held on $1.5 million bond. Here's what the prosecutor told the court. This video per Fox 59.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tiffany Colucci, 105168, on behalf of the state. This defendant, I do not have any prior history for this defendant. As Mr. Szymanski was about to say, this was discussed over the weekend. I believe Judge O'Grady was involved in that discussion. Mr. Szymanski had reached out to us and we had agreed to a $1.5 million bond. The facts, there is a juvenile missing out of Indiana who was last known to be in the company of the defendant. A search warrant was executed at the defendant's home. Digital devices were seized and found to contain child sexual abuse material containing images of the juvenile. We do not have contact with a prosecuting witness in this case. There are no heinous small factors. The state would be requesting in addition, conditions of the bond, in addition to the $1.5 million. Stay away from victim and any family members or next of kin. No unsupervised contact with minors, no internet usage.
Thomas made his first court appearance today in Ohio. He showed no emotion as he appeared in court on a video feed from the county jail. According to Fox 59 out of Indiana, Thomas's attorney told media after the hearing that Hailey's body was found over the weekend in Perry County, Ohio. That's south of Columbus. His attorney also said the FBI picked Thomas up over the weekend from the county jail, and Thomas led them to the location of Hailey's body. Thomas's attorney said that he believes his client will be charged with murder in Hosang County, Ohio, which is next to Perry County, and that is where it's alleged Thomas had a short-term rental property.
Chief, can you indicate to us how your victim first encountered the suspect? Was it random? Was it planned?
He was here to pick her up.
And how did they first make contact with one another?
Through gaming online.
And were you able to utilize either cell phone or social media information in your investigation?
All of it, yes.
Can you explain how that was utilized?
I cannot.
Now, you can see police are not releasing a lot of information beyond what they said in their opening statements. They did say that they believe that Hailey died within a few days of Thomas allegedly picking her up at her house. Now, police have not released what they believe to be Hailey's cause of death. Fishers, Indiana police also said that they were the ones who encountered Thomas first. It's unclear where exactly that happened. They also say they first made contact with him within days of the teenager going missing. Police said that Thomas was cooperative, but they wouldn't expand on that. The chief also said that Thomas has no criminal history that they know about, and right now, Thomas isn't facing a charge of murder, but he is facing 2 counts that police say are related to the case.
He's being held in the Franklin County, Ohio jail on 2 felonies. Pandering, obscenity, and tampering with evidence. There's no bond set at this time.
Now, that charge you hear of pandering, obscenity involving a minor, it's defined as create, reproduce, or publish any obscene material when the offender knows that the material is to be used for commercial exploitation or will be publicly disseminated or displayed, or when the offender is reckless in that regard, which is according to Ohio law. Now, police say they believe that Hailey is dead based on evidence they collected at Thomas's house and evidence that they took from his vehicle. They also say they have evidence based off of the statements that he made, but they have not expanded on whether he confessed or what exactly he said when he was confronted by law enforcement. Now, police have said that they have not been able to recover any of the personal belongings belonging to Hailey. Thomas made his first court appearance on Monday in Ohio. Now, in the wake of the news of Hailey's death, her dad, who for the 26 days that she was missing, did everything he could to help in the search for his daughter, posted this on social media with this video of Hailey at the beach. He says, quote, "Hailey was a smart, beautiful, kind, and caring young lady with a bright future. She had a deep love for her family and holds a very special place in so many hearts. Our family is devastated. We want the community and others to know that we are thankful for the support we received. It's been tremendous and gave us the hope and strength we needed during our darkest hours. Please continue to keep our family in your thoughts and prayers as we move forward, and thank you for all the love you have shown our precious Hailey. And he also posted a link to this change.org petition to pass legislation that would be known as Hailey's Law. The petition states that when Hailey went missing, she was characterized as a runaway. She wasn't physically kidnapped in a way that would warrant an Amber Alert, and she didn't have a disability that would trigger a Silver Alert. The petition states that Hailey wasn't a runaway. She was allegedly lured by a predator from her home. The petition would like to create what would be called a pink alert, which would be for people and children who go missing under concerning circumstances. In cases like Hailey's, there would be timely public notifications according to this petition. It also calls for predator awareness education in Indiana schools. And right now, more than 30,000 people have signed that petition on change.org. Joining us now is Mark Weaver, prosecutor and former deputy attorney general for the state of Ohio. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. This story happening in your state, and just awful to hear what law enforcement have said over the last 24 hours, and now the word coming out of this court hearing that Hailey's body's been found in Perry County, Ohio. I want to start first with how the suspect in this case was charged not with murder. That's now anticipated to be coming soon, but pandering obscenity to minors is his first kind of the headline charge that they talked about yesterday. Just for people who are kind of understanding the laws and what he's facing right now, what does that tell you that that's the charge that they put against him first?
Typically, prosecutors will bring holding charges, things they know they have evidence for while they're trying to sort out the other charges. So if they have his devices and they have child abuse sex material that features this young woman who appears to have been murdered by him, then that's an easy charge for pandering obscenity. That's a second-degree felony. Typically, we bring it when we think the person created the child sex abuse materials, not necessarily just possessing it. So that's enough to keep him in jail while they sort out the other charges. And because we have potentially 3 counties now, Columbus is Franklin County, just to the southeast is Perry County, and then continuing further southeast is Hosang County. So you have 3 different sets of law enforcement and 3 different prosecutors who could bring charges. So this initial charge appears to be a holding charge.
And it's anticipated now in Hosang County, where he apparently had some kind of short-term rental, and that's where they believe that Hailey allegedly was murdered there, and then her body's now found in a different county. What goes into deciding where he is going to be prosecuted? Because now it sounds like Hosang County is where he will be charged with murder.
Well, ideally, the prosecutors from each of the 3 counties talk to one another. It is possible to choose a jurisdiction if it was a continuing course of events, if the crime was one long spree, something happened in one county and then he took her to another county. So under the criminal rules, you can actually bring the case in a variety of counties depending on what happened in each. But if they know for sure that she was murdered in Hosang County, which is rural southeastern Ohio, then that's likely where it's going to be brought. Now, be aware that the resources are much different. I've prosecuted in 12 Ohio counties, many of which are small rural counties like Hosang. The amount of resources these smaller prosecutors' offices have are much, much less than, for example, Columbus area, Franklin County prosecutors. That could be a consideration as well. Although the state attorney general's office does have a special prosecutions unit that could come alongside these prosecutors and help them.
This was a girl. So he lives in Ohio, and then she lived in Indiana, and then he is communicating with her, according to law enforcement, over some sort of video game, and that's how they came in touch online. How likely would it be that the federal government would charge him with something?
Well, the fact that he moved her across state lines means that there would be federal potential kidnapping jurisdiction. I know the FBI has been involved at some level assisting. Typically, the federal government has much more resources, and the agents have far more experience and training typically than a local sheriff's office might have, or even local police have. And so there are a variety of jurisdictions that could bring the case. Hopefully there will be some sense of cooperation between the feds and the 3 county law enforcement.
It is horrific, this story and what this man is accused of doing. And we don't know all of the information yet, but to this point, it's just so terrible. They were searching for a body, and apparently they found that body. And at the news conference yesterday, the timeline was that they communicated with him. He apparently told an alleged lie in the beginning that he just dropped her off on the side of the road somewhere in Ohio, driving back from Indiana. Then they blew through that lie, and they could tell that that wasn't true. But then they said he was being cooperative. And I don't know if that means that he led them to where her body was located. But how do you negotiate with someone who is accused of doing something so horrific, and knowing that you want the family to have that closure, but at the same time, not giving him something, not maybe softening what the prosecution would look like when someone's done something so terrible?
Well, I've worked on numerous death penalty cases in Ohio. The death penalty is appropriate when there's a murder plus another felony, a special circumstance, also called an aggravating circumstance. Interestingly, Hosang would probably be more likely to want to bring the death penalty than Franklin, just the nature of the background of the prosecutors. But that is one of the ways that you can leverage information from a defendant. You could say, we're going to go to a death penalty case unless you'd like to give us all the information and plead guilty to murder, which would give you a life in prison. We saw that in Idaho, right? When we know that Brian Koberger was able to have the death penalty taken off the table in return for him pleading guilty and admitting, at least in some small way, his role in those crimes.
Because with the pandering obscenity crime, and according to the complaint, they have his cell phone and it shows child sex abuse material on that cell phone. So it seems like you have him on that particular charge. What type of, I guess, leverage does that give you as a prosecutor, knowing that you're walking into this with something that would, on its own, probably put him away for a long period of time?
Yeah, that's the easiest of the charges. The child porn or child sex abuse materials, what we call it now, cases, they're very simple cases. If it's on your device, you're guilty. That's essentially it. Prove that the device belongs to this person, and a jury will convict them. And in this case, second-degree felony is a serious crime. If there's more than one image, you can bring a charge for each image. And a judge, if you get the right judge, another reason why maybe we ought to be in Hosang County, not Franklin County, because of the nature of the ideology of the judges, the judge can stack those sentences on top of one another. So I've prosecuted cases involving child sex abuse materials and encouraged the judge to stack the charges so that it makes for a much longer prison sentence, potentially even a life sentence if you add up several images and several sentences for each image.
And it appears he did allegedly have multiple images on his phone. It's interesting that the family now, and you can't imagine what they're going through, but they want laws passed, and this would be in Indiana, for what they want to call a pink alert, which they say when Hailey went missing, yes, she voluntarily left the house. She wasn't abducted and someone pulled her into the car. She got into the vehicle that was allegedly driven by this man, and she was initially considered a runaway. And sadly, we do see a lot of cases where this, you see a young teenager and it's a runaway, and people may look at that and view that and say, here's a teen who just was going through kind of those teenage years and she ran away. And maybe the public didn't realize how much danger she was actually in compared to something like an Amber Alert where everybody gets it on their phone and it's this urgent public search. And they would like to see a pink alert be something that would be when there are circumstances that say that someone was lured out of the house, that there would be that public alert going out. Where do you stand on just the response in some of these cases where you do have runaways and everybody wants their child to come back home? But in this case, this was not just a teenager, it appears, who, maybe they were upset with their parents and ran off. It was something more than that.
From a public policy perspective, we want to have enough alerts so that we can find children at risk or others at risk, but not so many that the general public begins ignoring them. If we see, every time we go past a highway sign, if we see an alert, we're less likely to pay attention. If every time we get a text or an email about an alert, if it's several times a week, we stop paying attention. So I feel for this family. It's every parent's worst nightmare that their child would be the victim of a crime like this. But I want to make sure that we remember that in the modern era, access to the internet allows these teens whose brains are not fully formed yet to interact with adults. And these adults will convince them that it's going to be a great life for us to leave and go do things. It's a little bit like a runaway, and it's a little bit like an abduction. So I understand the necessity for it. I would want to make sure that we don't have too many alerts so people ignore them.
And I think of this suspect, he's 39 years old. According to police, he does not have criminal history. And to think that this is someone's first run-in with the law for something so horrific as this, I know you have tried a lot of very difficult cases in your career with some very, very bad people. In these types of cases, I mean, how common is it that you have someone that is a first-time offender doing something as awful as this?
It's unusual. Typically, when I'm involved in indicting a violent criminal or a sex offender, we open up their file and we see other run-ins with the law. So this is unusual, but I suppose everybody has their first time. And tragically, this may have been his first time, or maybe he has done this before and these crimes went unsolved and the investigators don't know that it was him. And that might be leverage that he has. If he has been involved in other crimes and wants to solve them, he could use that knowledge of those crimes to close those cases to get perhaps a better sentence.
I know you know Columbus well, and there's one part of the story that I'm hoping to learn more information about, because when he was booked into jail in Franklin County, which is where Columbus is, his address was listed as homeless. But then on the criminal complaint, there is an address there where they say that he was living and where some of these alleged terrible acts happened. And it seems to be a very nice house. Just what sticks out to you that difference there? That certainly is a gray area right now, just in terms of his background, who he is and where he's from.
Yeah, that section of Columbus is called Victorian Village, and it's well known for very expensive townhomes. And what may have happened here is when he was first arrested or taken into custody and was asked if he had an address, he said he didn't, and they marked that down as homeless. And then later they found out, in fact, that he has this house or access to this house that likely belongs to someone else. I don't know this, but I'm going to predict that when we get to the facts, that the home is not in his name. Either he was squatting there or he had a friend there and some way to be there other than owning that home himself.
And you have to wonder, too, with the short-term rental that he had in Hosang County, that there was money coming from somewhere. There was something. It wasn't like this was someone who was, on the side of the street, when you think of the term homeless. The other part of what the family, in this change.org petition that I did think was interesting that they're calling for in Indiana would be for there to be more education in schools when it comes to teaching kids about grooming, teaching kids about predators online. And we've talked sadly about so many different cases where the contact that a predator has with a child, maybe it's a video game system, very different from the video games. I didn't play a lot when I was growing up, but now they're on the internet and you can communicate with anyone, anywhere in ways that I don't think a lot of parents realize. I think often when we talk about what parents need to know, it's know what your kids are doing online. But I guess, where have you seen the education at when it comes to children understanding truly who they might be talking to when a screen name pops up on whatever online platform that they're on?
Yeah, I agree with you. We need to tell kids, both at the schools and around the kitchen table, about the dangers of people on the internet. 50 years ago, a child sex predator had to actually make physical contact at a baseball game or some park to be able to commit these crimes. And now they simply can connect online. And parents all too often don't bother checking out all the technology that the kids are using. They think they're playing video games. They don't realize you could talk to anyone around the world in your headset or while typing while playing a video game. So parents need to be more alert than ever, and schools really ought to be into this. There are some things we teach in schools that maybe could be set aside in favor of basic safety from online predators and from real life predators.
Yeah, I mean, when I read that, I thought about it and I was like, I can't remember when there were classes in school about those types of interactions online. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm in the true crime space, so we see these stories often, even though this one is certainly very unique. And it's something that you hope more parents will learn, and hopefully schools can do some, to help young people understand the dangers online. Mark Weaver, prosecutor, former deputy attorney general for the state of Ohio. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Very tough story here. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, I'll be praying for this family. Chris, thanks for having me on.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and now you can find episodes of On the Case on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.